What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Mock Draft Guy YouTube channel. So it is done. The NFL draft has come and gone, and I am giving you right up to the minute. Literally, Mr. Irrelevant was just picked 2 seconds ago. I'm coming at you with my 2023 NFL draft team grades. Now, this is how this is going to work. I have all the players listed here by teams. This is an awesome, up-to-date list by ESPN. And I'm going to go over to tier maker here, and I'm going to put them in A, B, C, D, or F. I'll be honest with you guys real quick. I mean, these are obviously, these are debatable. It's all about perception, all about opinion. I'm a pretty easy grader for the most part, so you're going to see a lot of teams probably in the A's and B's, to be quite honest with you. I don't think I've ever given out an F, and I'll be real with you. I'm not giving out an F to anyone today, but this should be super fun. These usually do well, and I love the engagement. So before we get into it, I just want to thank you guys so much for an amazing 2023 NFL draft season. I live streamed the entire first round. I live streamed the entire second and third round of the NFL draft. 7 hours of live streaming between the two nights. Me and my boy J-Wack, who you've seen on this channel before. We had a heck of a time. So thank you guys all who came into the stream and interacted. We had a blast throughout the first 102 picks of the draft. But without further delay, I think we should get into it here. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So the Arizona Cardinals will be up first. So the Arizona Cardinals are up first because they are in alphabetical order. The Cardinals, very, very strong draft in my opinion. Paris Johnson Jr. was a great selection after trading. So a little interesting, the Arizona Cardinals traded back to pick number 12. They acquired a bunch of assets for next year and this year as well. And then they moved back up to get Paris Johnson Jr. Kind of an inclination that he was going to get selected. We heard that Kyler Murray liked him. They brought him in for a couple of visits as well. So totally not surprising. I think at number 6, this is a really nice selection. Pretty good value. I would say for a lot of people, he was the consensus number 1 tackle. Then you get B.J. Ojulari, awesome. Garrett Williams, Michael Wilson, John Gaines. I mean, from top to bottom, these are names, if you're an NFL draft guy, you should know. Tremendous value in round 5 with Clayton Tune. And I have a hot take. I honestly think that with Kyler Murray being out basically the entire year this upcoming season, I think Clayton Tune is going to be the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, and it's going to be really interesting. Cottrell Clark, who's a really nice slot corner they get in the 6th round. Even Dante Stills is some really nice defensive line depth. I'm going to go over to the chart right here. I'm not going to lie, I love this draft for the Arizona Cardinals. The best part is now they have an extra first-round pick next year as well. They're probably not going to be great this year just based off of quarterback play unless, Clayton Tune turns out to be a Dak Prescott or a Gardner Minshew or Tom Brady, someone in the later rounds that comes in and balls out. I think he will do well, but I love the way that they set up their future, and I love the way that they set up their team with this draft. I'm going to give them an A, a solid A to start off. We are going Arizona Cardinals way up here. So moving on to the next team, we have the Atlanta Falcons. So the Atlanta Falcons started off with making a pretty controversial pick, I would say. They took Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson probably is a top 3 overall player in this entire draft. But, it depends on who you talk to. A lot of people don't value running backs in the first round, especially at pick number 8, especially with the Atlanta Falcons needing a lot of help on the defensive side of the ball, even maybe another weapon on the offensive side. So I like this pick. I know a lot of people say, Tyler Algier had over 1,000 yards his rookie season. Yeah, I get that. But Bijan Robinson is someone that could come in and for the next 5 years, this is another big thing. The 5th-year option for a running back really basically takes you through the entire prime of a running back. So in 5 years, if Bijan Robinson is already on the decline, then they could walk away scot-free. But, if he's not, I doubt it. Bijan Robinson seems like the next great running back in the NFL. They give him a second contract. It's rare, I feel like, nowadays that we see running backs get a second contract, especially for big money. But, this is nice. Instead of a 4-year contract, you get a 5-year contract with a running back in the first round. And the best part is he's a great player, great person, seems very genuine. He's going to be a baller behind that offensive line, that much improved offensive line. I like the pick, to be quite honest with you. And then they didn't have many picks the rest of the way. Matthew Bergeron in round 2, I thought that was a tad high, 46. was a tad high for Bergeron. I still like it. They get some really solid offensive line depth and a potential starter. Zach Harrison, someone who's really, really good against the run. Clark Phillips in round 4 was an absolute steal. Probably going to start as the slot corner. And DeMarco Helms as well. Really, really solid pick in the 7th round. I like this a lot. I think picking a running back at 8 is, I love Bijan and I love the fit. Picking a running back at 8 still is a little high for me. And maybe, just maybe, they reached on Bergeron. But I still think that he's a solid player. Harrison and Phillips, 2 guys that I think are pretty much steals where they got them. I'm going to come over here, and I think I'm going to give the Atlanta Falcons a B+ for their draft. I really like what they did with a limited amount of picks, and they got some real playmakers. Clark Phillips and Bijan Robinson really stand out to me as the 2 instant playmakers that they got during this draft. And now you move over to the Baltimore Ravens here. The Ravens had a really interesting draft as well. Obviously, Zay Flowers in round 1. I thought they could have went a couple different ways there. Trent Simpson in round 3. I feel like you cannot beat that value. And this is really nice because now you have him next to Roquan Smith as well. Patrick Queen. That's a really nice little core of linebackers that you got there. Tavius Robinson was interesting. I thought maybe a little bit of a reach, probably would have been there in the 5th round, but then they turned it around. They got Caillou Blue-Kelly, some nice outside cornerback, some boundary cornerback depth as well, a potential starter. And I really like Andrew Voorhees in the 7th round. This is a guy that if he was healthy, probably would have been an early day 2 pick. It's unfortunate that he tore his ACL, but if he comes back and he is the same player, that is tremendous value for the Baltimore Ravens. I like what they did here. They got a lot of value picks. I think Flowers was a very solid pick in the 1st round. Simpson in round 3 is a no-brainer. Blue-Kelly is a nice pick in round 5, and in round 7, Voorhees. I think that this is a really solid draft considering that they, only had 6 picks. So make of that what you will. But I'm going to give the Baltimore Ravens a B- for their draft. I do like Zay Flowers. Maybe corner. It depends on who was still on the board, but corner could have been in play there. There was a couple different positions. Defensive line wasn't really addressed to where I would like it to be addressed, but nevertheless, I think with their picks that they made, they did a really, really solid job. So moving on now to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills had a really, really nice draft. I'm not going to lie. I like this pick. I do. Dalton Kincaid, trading up for Dalton Kincaid was a good pick. I was a little surprised. I thought they would go offensive line in the 1st round, or corner, or safety for that matter. There was a lot of safeties on the board. I thought even maybe Nolan Smith would have been in play there. So I liked it. I thought if I was going to give 1st round grades, I'd probably give that pick a B. I like the player. I like the fit. You're not really going to ask him to do too much other than be a receiver, and he is going to be a tremendous threat against any defense, especially in the AFC East. I liked it a lot, but then they absolutely killed it the rest of the way. Osiris Torrance in round 2, amazing. Dorian Williams, a little undersized tackling machine. We're talking about a guy that over the past 2 seasons had over 130 total tackles both seasons. Tremendous there. Justin Shorter, 6'4", 220 pounds. Another tremendous boundary wide receiver for Josh Allen to throw to. Nick Broker, you get in round 7 some insanely awesome value for a guy who had 30 career starts combined at left tackle and left guard. And then you get Alex Austin way at the end of the draft here. Some really solid cornerback depth, good cornerback from Oregon State. I love this draft. Like I said before, I'm a pretty easy drafter. I think league-wide, you're looking at this draft by the Buffalo Bills. They definitely got better. I am going to give them an A on this draft. I really, really like what they did. And they didn't have a crazy amount of picks either. We're looking at, 6 picks that they had, and they did a really, really good job with those 6 picks. I love it. Carolina is next up. Obviously, they traded up for the number 1 overall pick. We pretty much knew for the most part it was going to be Bryce Young. I think that's an excellent pick, an easy A for me. Bryce Young was the clear-cut quarterback 1, and they did a decent job of surrounding him with, like I said, they only had 5 picks. So you're not going to fill every single hole that you had. But getting Jonathan Mingo in round 2, 6'2", 220 pounds. He has a tremendous release package. He's great off the line of scrimmage. Adding another weapon, they have Terrace Marshall, they have DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, Laviska Shenault. I mean, I think I said Laviska Shenault twice actually, but they're adding some tremendous value there. DJ Johnson was a little bit of a reach, in my opinion, in round 3. I thought he probably would have been there in round 4, but then they make up for it with Chandler Zavala, who's a super, super clean offensive line prospect. 6'4", 325 pounds, could probably move everywhere in the interior of that offensive line. That's a really solid pick. And then Jamie Robinson in the 5th round was pretty good value, someone who I could have thought was going to go probably late day 2. So I like the draft overall. I think just with 5 picks, there wasn't too much that they could do for the most part, except for getting Bryce Young. But they did what they were supposed to do. They went out and with the number 1 overall pick, they got their franchise quarterback, and they surrounded him with another weapon, and they got some decent depth along the way as well. So I'm going to give it a B+. I would give it an A, but with 5 picks, I just can't in good conscience, even with nailing the number 1 overall pick, I can't give it an A. So I'm going to give it a B+. Yeah, definitely going to give that a B+. Moving on, we have the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears had a very interesting draft. A lot of people didn't like the Darnell Wright pick. I did. The one thing I didn't like about it is they traded down 1 spot and they allowed the Philadelphia Eagles to get Jalen Carter. But let's be real. I think from the get-go, even if Jalen Carter was going to be on the board, the Chicago Bears were going to go with an offensive tackle. I've said this before. If you're a fan of this channel, you know I say this stat all the time. 679 dropbacks in his career. Justin Fields was sacked 91 times. I don't care what kind of offensive line you're looking at. I know it's improved. They added Nate Davis. Braxton Jones is a really nice pick. Ja'Tyre Carter is someone who could be a nice pick. A nice player along the way as a depth or a swing guy. But this allows them to do so much. Now you move Tevin Jenkins back in at the right guard position or left guard position, whatever you want to do, and you have Darnell Wright as your starting right tackle. I love this pick, to be quite honest with you. And then the rest of the way, it was interesting. Gervon Dexter was a nice pick. I thought maybe a little high, but nevertheless, they desperately needed some defensive line help. Tariq Stevenson, awesome player, another boundary cornerback. Maybe they'll put Kyler Gordon back in the slot. Zach Pickens, another great pick. Roshan Johnson, got a super solid running back there. And then, adding guys like Tyler Scott as a speedster. Noah Sewell was someone who his draft stock completely plummeted over the course of the 2022-23 season. And then they got some interesting depth along the way. Terrell Smith is another player I like. This is a good draft for the most part. Maybe a lot of people will be underwhelmed, but I think that they hit a lot of areas of need here. Maybe not the sexiest draft, a lot of line picks, but they did get a speedster at the wide receiver position. They added Roshan Johnson, someone who could be, if Khalil Herbert isn't the guy, Roshan Johnson could be the guy. It's just a shame that he was overshadowed by Bijan Robinson in his career at Texas. So I like this a lot, to be honest with you. I'm going to give it a solid B. I think that the Chicago Bears did a good job of hitting a lot of their needs. And I like I said, not the sexiest draft, but they did what they had to do. They got players in positions of need. So moving on, you got the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of people clown this Myles Murphy pick. I love it. I think this is a tremendous addition. I know you're going to say they have, drawn a blank on his name there. They have Trey Hendrickson. They have Sam Hubbard. Be that as it may, this is someone that you could throw in there and he could be an absolute monster. Maybe not an every down player right away, someone that you throw in there first down, second down, and then he comes off the field third down. He's going to have to learn really how to be an every down player, but the intangibles are there. The size, the length, the speed, the athleticism, everything is there. I like this pick, and he was basically the best player available. So why not go get him? I really like that pick. I'm a big Myles Murphy fan as well. As you could tell by my Myles Murphy player profile, that's probably the most successful video I've actually ever had in my channel's history. Then they just went off. I mean, DJ Turner, Jordan Battle. DJ Turner is probably going to be the slot cornerback there. 4.26 speed. Unbelievable pickup there. Jordan Battle was really nice. I know a lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans don't like the fact that they took a safety, but I think Battle at that point in the draft is excellent value. Charlie Jones and Andre Iosovas are some really nice pickups there. Chase Brown is someone who could be a workhorse. DJ Ivy, another really, really nice pickup, a nice depth piece at the end of the draft. I like this. I feel like I've just been throwing out B's. This is going to be a B+ for me. I really like what they did here. The Cincinnati Bengals killed it. Very low key, they killed it. So We haven't seen a C or a D here. Like I said, I'm a pretty easy grader for the most part, especially since we've never seen any of these guys play in the NFL. So this could either be a super, super cold take, or it could be pretty spot on. So, I like to give a lot of teams the benefit of the doubt. And we know that every team has a different draft board than we do. That's why they're the pros. That's why I'm sitting here at my desk in my home in New York doing this. So anyway, moving on to the Cleveland Browns here. Now, I'm not going to lie. The first pick for the Cleveland Browns, I was not a fan of. I like Cedric Tillman, the player. I didn't like the pick. After having, they have Donovan Peoples-Jones, they have Amari Cooper, they picked up Marquise Goodwin, they traded for Elijah Moore. I wasn't really a fan of, especially with the needs that they had on the defensive line and in the secondary. I wasn't a huge fan of this. I liked it maybe for the long term. Maybe they're thinking about trading someone. I really don't know. I wasn't necessarily a fan of this, but the draft after this is just amazing. Siaka Ike is a player that I wasn't super high on, but at this point in the draft, tremendous value. You're getting a 340-pound run-stuffing defensive tackle, exactly what the Cleveland Browns need. Dawad Jones, a developmental tackle that could be an absolute stud at his size. Isaiah McGuire is someone that I really like a lot, 270, 6'4", perfect size for a 4-3 edge. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, another solid pick, a developmental quarterback. Cam Mitchell, Luke Whippler in the 6th round, someone who I thought probably could have gone late day 2. Tremendous value. That is your long-term Ethan Pochich replacement. I loved it after the Cedric Tillman pick. And even that, I'm not really so mad about the pick. I just didn't really think it made a ton of sense at the time. But I love this draft. I think that they made the most of their mid-round picks. And what did they have here? They had 7 picks. I think they made the absolute most out of their 7 picks here. I think the Cleveland Browns deserve an A for this, an A-, I will say, for this draft class. The only reason it doesn't get an A for me is because, like I said, I don't really understand the Cedric Tillman pick when, they had so many other needs. But if he was BPA on their board, then, go for it. Dallas is up next. Very, very calm draft by the Dallas Cowboys. This is a team that I thought was going to go for it. If Bijan Robinson was there, they were going to get him. If Michael Mayer was there, they were going to go get him. I for sure thought they were going to offense. I thought Mazzie Smith was going to be a good pick if they picked him. I didn't think that they were going to, though, but they did. They needed a run-stuffing defensive tackle, supremely athletic for his size, 6'3", 323 pounds, tremendous, tremendous player. His athleticism is off the charts. He's got a little bit of pass rushing chops to him. He's got a really strong bull rush because he's huge and he's super athletic. So if he could develop a little bit more of that, I think he'll be a tremendous all-around player. Luke Schoonmaker was a pick that I wasn't really a fan of. With the other tight ends that were on the board at the time, we didn't really know too much about the Darnell Washington foot thing. So I was thinking, oh my God, how could that not be Darnell Washington? It kind of grew on me a little bit after I slept on it. I'm still not the biggest fan of the pick with the guys that were left on the board, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt. He's a tremendous player in his own right. I just thought they probably were better tight ends on the board. Marvion Overshown, really nice player. You had to know that the Dallas Cowboys were going to get, some type of linebacker at some point. Deuce Vaughn in the 6th round. Really nice pickup as well. This is someone that's probably not going to be your workhorse, but he could fill that Tony Pollard role very well. Now that Tony Pollard's probably going to be the workhorse, Deuce Vaughn is that 3rd down back that could be a really, really nice, give a nice electric juice into that offense. And then Asim Richards in round 5 was really nice value too. They get a really nice backup offensive tackle. He could play guard as well. I like this. Overall, I think it's a good draft. I'm probably going to give it a B-. I like some of the players. I don't like others, to be quite honest with you. I thought it was a very calm draft by the Dallas Cowboys, something that we're not used to seeing, but I'm going to give it a B-. I thought it was a solid draft overall. Then we are going to I keep hitting that up on top. I got to stop doing that. Then we're going to the Denver Broncos. I mean, not many picks. They had 5 picks here. They also traded, I believe it was a 6th round pick, and they got Adam Troutman from the New Orleans Saints, so they picked up an extra tight end as well. Marvin Mims, I was a huge fan of this pickup. So it probably means that they're going to trade either Tim Patrick or Hamler at some point. Marvin Mims, great player, 4.37 speed. He could start on the outside. He could start in the slot. Tremendous route runner as well. I really liked this pick. I thought this was a little bit of a luxury pick, and I wasn't a fan of a luxury pick when you don't have many picks, but Marvin Mims is a solid player. This was a pick that I was totally okay with. Drew Sanders in the third round, tremendous value. Love that pick. Riley Moss, another one, good value pick there. JL Skinner is someone who's probably going to come back and be a perfect hybrid type of player. He's going to be a safety. He's probably going to be a sub-package linebacker at 6'4", 220 pounds. And then one of the last picks in the draft, they pick up Alex Forsythe, who's some really nice interior offensive line depth. Here's the thing for me, though. I thought that in this draft, they were going to have to take a center a little earlier or an interior offensive lineman. So that kind of put a little bit of a damper on this draft class for me. I still think it's really solid with 5 picks. I mean, they are getting some serious value up and down the board. Would have loved to see them take an offensive lineman earlier, but I think they did a really good job. I'm going to give them a B- for this. I mean, it's just A's and B's all over the place here. I apologize if you don't like that, but it is what it is. So we are going to go over to the Detroit Lions here. Now, I probably have a lot to say about the Detroit Lions here. They shocked the world, essentially, in taking a running back at pick number 12. Now, I thought this was really weird because it's not like they got the craziest package in the world to move back 6 spots. They got an early second round pick. Okay, why not stay at 6 and draft Bijan Robinson? So what that tells me is that Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs were like 1A and like 1AA on their board. It didn't really matter. This pick didn't make a lot of sense at the time. You get an explosive, probably not every down running back. They also had DeAndre Swift. They re-signed Craig Reynolds. They signed David Montgomery. It didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time. As we know now, they did trade DeAndre Swift. So it makes a little bit more sense. Jahmyr Gibbs is not a top 15 player, in my opinion. I know that their board is obviously different. With the needs that they had in the secondary and on the defensive line, I just can't really justify this being a really good first-round pick. I like Jack Campbell a lot. I thought this was a little bit of a reach, but he fills a big need for them as well, and he is an absolute stud, so I didn't mind that at all. Sam Laporta was a little bit interesting in the second round. Did not expect that early to see Laporta. Also didn't expect Detroit to take a tight end that early, so Laporta's a good downfield tight end, a nice vertical option. I think that there were way better tight ends on the board at the time. I was a little surprised by that pick. And then they turned around in the second round. They got Brian Branch. I mean, all around stupendous player. If you guys know my channel, you know he is one of my guys. So I was super excited about this. Hendon Hooker in the third round. Listen, if you guys are mad about it, that's tough. It's a third round pick for a guy who could turn around and be a superstar in the NFL. Eat it. Roderick Martin in the third round was a pick that a lot of people scratched their head at. I loved it. 6'4", 330 pounds. You're getting a supremely athletic player in the middle of your defense. Love that. I just thought that this was kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde draft for the Detroit Lions. They had 2 first-round picks. I don't think they made the most out of their first 2 picks. I want to give them a B so bad, but Jahmyr Gibbs and then Sam Laporta, and then I don't know, man. I'm hovering between a C+ and a B-, but I think I love the player. I don't love the pick in the first round. If you have 2 premium picks, you got to make a premium selection. As much as I love Jack Campbell, I don't think that's a premium selection. And as much as I love Jahmyr Gibbs, that's not a premium selection either. I love Brian Branch. I thought Sam Laporta was interesting. They got really good value out of Hendon Hooker and Broderick Martin. It's going to be a C+ for me for the Detroit Lions. I think this was a very underwhelming draft for them. Then we are moving on to hold that thought, the Green Bay Packers, another team, a very, very interesting draft. Lucas Van Ness at pick 13, I'm completely fine with. I was a little surprised, to be quite honest with you, but I think this is a really nice developmental defensive line piece. And let's be real, we all knew that the Green Bay Packers were not going to take a wide receiver with their first round pick. They went up 10 of the last 11 years, they have drafted a defensive player in the first round. It's just the way that they roll. That's just their philosophy, and we're going to have to deal with it. I like Van Ness there as the pick. Luke Musgrave was a fantastic pick in the second round. Loved it. Here's where it gets a little interesting. Jayden Reed and Tucker Kraft. Maybe not. Tucker Kraft's not a reach. I think Jayden Reed at in the second round was a bit of a reach. I had a 4th round grade on him. I was very surprised to see that. I like Tucker Kraft, and I guess, having 2 tight ends drafted, but I feel like they're 2 of the same exact players. They're guys that are going to need to develop their game at the NFL. You're not getting a day 1 ready tight end, in my opinion. But I guess these 2 guys are better than Josiah Diaguara, so I'll say that. Colby Wooden in the 4th round, good value. Dontavion Wicks, don't let last year fool you. 2021, he was tremendous. That's some really good value. And then there's some good value here. Carl Brooks in the 6th round. Carrington Valentine in round 7. I know that Mel Kiper was super high on him. And then Grant Dubois with almost the last pick in the draft. So they got some good value up and down the board. I just think that these 2 picks are very strange. And then the Sean Clifford pick in round 5 he was probably going to be an undrafted free agent, to be quite honest with you. If there was one team that was going to take him, it was probably going to be the Green Bay Packers. Just a strange draft for me. I like what they did here. I don't like the fact that it took them until this pick to draft a receiver, and for it to be Jaden Reed with some of the guys that were left on the board, strange. And then you take Tucker Kraft after just taking Luke Musgrave. Some people might like it. I'm not particularly a big fan of it. I'm going to give the Green Bay Packers a C+ for their draft. Moving on to the Houston Texans, another team. Was in love with their draft at first, and then not really. C.J. Stroud, then you trade up to get Will Anderson Jr. I like what the Houston Texans did here because Nick Caserio wanted C.J. Stroud. DeMeco Ryans wanted Will Anderson Jr. You have the assets. You go make a trade and get 2 of the best players in the draft outright. I know that they gave up a lot to move up to number 3 to get Will Anderson Jr. I get it. I loved these 2 picks. You get one of the best offensive players in the draft and then probably the best defensive player in the draft with back-to-back picks. I loved it right away. Then the next couple picks, I really wasn't a fan of. You get Juice Scruggs. They traded up to get Juice Scruggs. Good player, don't get me wrong. Injury history, a little concerning. And then Nathaniel Dell. Is it me or the wide receiving room for the Houston Texans just doesn't scare me at all? You got Robert Woods, who's on his last legs. You got John Mechie coming back from cancer. You have Nico Collins, and now you have Tank Dell. So I thought there could have been a more impactful pick here. I mean, he's great off the line, don't get me wrong. I was not as high on Tank Dell as a lot of people were, so maybe that's where I'm coming from. I like Dylan Horton here in round 4, Henry Toto as well, and then fantastic value with these last 3 picks. Jared Patterson, Xavier Hutchinson, fantastic value as well, and then Brandon Hill in the 7th round. So that kind of saved these 5 picks, really kind of saved it from being probably a B- for the most part. Like I said, I'm just not really a fan of trading up for Juice Scruggs and then getting Nathaniel Dell after that. But all in all, super solid draft. I'm going to give the Houston Texans a B+ for this draft. Moving on now to the Indianapolis Colts. Outright, the Indianapolis Colts had one of the best drafts of any team in the NFL. I know this draft class is going to hinder on the success from Anthony Richardson, but this is a perfect quarterback for Shane Steichen and what he wants to run in Indianapolis. I loved it. That was a great pick. And then up and down, you got fantastic value everywhere. Julius Brents, amazing. If he doesn't work out a corner, he could probably be a really good safety with his speed. Josh Downs, fantastic slot piece that they needed some speed, they needed some juice. Blake Freeland, another great pick here, another solid offensive line piece. Getting Adetomiwa Adebawore in the 4th round is fantastic value. This guy is going to make a fantastic partnership with Kwity Paye. Darius Rush and Daniel Scott in the 5th round. Fantastic. Probably the only pick that I really kind of snarked at was Will Mallory, and that's still a pretty decent pick. Evan Hull is solid running back depth. And then you get Jalen Jones in round 7. He can't cover for crap, but he's a really good athletic player. He could be whatever you want him to be. They can mold him into anything. This draft for me is going to get probably the first A+. Yeah, it's definitely going to get an A+. I think the Indianapolis Colts absolutely killed it on draft day. Now we have the Jacksonville Jaguars here. Another team with a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of draft, to be quite honest with you. Anton Harrison, perfectly fine at this pick. They need a tackle. They kind of were forced into taking a tackle here after Jawan Taylor left. Now Cam Robinson is getting a suspension, probably a 6-game suspension. They were kind of forced into making this pick, but I think Anton Harrison's a great player regardless. I like that pick a lot. Then day 2 was interesting. Brenton Strange in the second round was a massive reach in my opinion. Tank Bigsby is okay, but do you really need a running back at that point in the draft? I really didn't think so. You know, the other picks, day 3 picks made up for the most part. They have an obsession with linebackers. I don't know why. They took 2 last year that were pretty good. Ventrell Miller in round 4 and then Yasir Abdullah in round 5. Yasir Abdullah is a really, really athletic piece. I like that. Tyler Lacey, some really nice defensive line depth. Antonio Johnson and Parker Washington, getting these guys in the 5th and 6th round was really, really nice. And then getting Derek Parrish, someone who not only can play on the offense or the defense, he's a tremendous special teamer, probably the best special teamer in the entire draft class. And you know that if you're a late round pick, the one way to get on a team is to be a standout special teamer. So I think they nailed that last pick, to be quite honest with you. This is an underwhelming draft for me, though, in my opinion. I mean, Brenton Strange and Tank Bigsby, I saw CBS gave the Jacksonville Jaguars an A on their Brenton Strange pick. I do not see it at all. I think this was a massive reach in the second round. Tank Bigsby didn't make too much sense to me there. The rest of the picks are good depth. I will give it to them there. I think Christian Braswell was interesting and Eric Hallett. Interesting picks there as well at that point in the draft. I could be, I could be splitting hairs here to some listeners, but I don't know. I was not happy with this draft class. This is a C for me for the Jacksonville Jaguars, wherever they are. Here they are. So moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that was just essentially playing with house money. I love what they did. Felix Anudike-Uzomah was certainly a surprising pick, but I think it was a great one. I mean, not only are you getting a super productive player, you're getting someone that's already beloved by the Kansas Cityans, I guess is what you would say. Played at Kansas State, is from Kansas City. This is someone that's absolutely going to give you the heart and soul of his body, and he's going to give 1,000% on every single snap. And he's a great player, too. I love this pick. As you guys know, Felix Anudike-Uzomah was one of my guys going into this draft. Rashee Rice, trading up for Rashee Rice, I like that a lot. We had to know that Kansas City, with like the 12 picks that they had, we knew that they were going to move up and down the board. Rashee Rice is nice. Wanya Morris could easily start at right tackle week 1. Shamari Connor is a really nice safety cornerback combo as well. BJ Thompson, someone who's a developmental edge rusher. Keandre Coburn, super, super good depth piece at the 6th round. And then they got Nick Jones towards the end of the draft, another really solid cornerback piece. I like this draft a lot, to be honest with you. I like Anudike-Uzomah. I like Wanya Morris and Rashee Rice. These are impact players from day one. I'm going to give this a B+ for the Kansas City Chiefs, the host Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is a well-constructed draft by them. Then we are going to move on to the LA Chargers. I'll be honest with you, I'm very upset that the Chargers didn't take a tight end at all, not even in the later rounds. Quentin Johnston, super nice player here. I'm not going to lie, he reminds me of a poor man's Mike Williams, but that could be what they need on this offense. He's really good after the catch as well. So I like this. I didn't mind this at all. This was a good pick in my opinion. I could have seen them going tight end, but Quentin Johnston on the board there, I guess you kind of can't say no. Tuli Tuipulotu, really nice pick as well. I think he's going to be super, super good as an outside linebacker. Really, really productive. Last year was one of the top sack getters in the FBS at 13.5 sacks. Diane Henley, another tackling machine. This is super good here. And then you add a lot of speed here in the 4th round. Darius Davis with his, I think it was a 4.26 or like a 4.28 40-yard dash. That's really all you need to know. Jordan McFadden is a nice depth piece for we know that they really hit on these late round offensive line pieces. Scott Matlock, super nice pick as well. And then Max Duggan to be a backup quarterback. This is a solid draft class. This is a solid B in my opinion. Nothing too flashy, nothing too crazy. They got the job done. They missed out on a need in my opinion with a tight end, but I like what the Los Angeles Chargers did. I'm going to give them a solid B for this. Then we are moving on to the Rams. Gotta be honest with you. I wasn't super hopeful for what the Rams were going to do. I thought they were going to move all around the board and make stupid picks. They stayed at number 34 overall. They took Steve Avila. And this is someone that's going to start right away at left guard for them. Love this. This is a plug and play guy for the next 10 years. He is excellent. Great first pick. And then just look at the value up and down the board. Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Stetson Bennett in the 4th round was a weird pick for me. Nick Hampton, Warren McClendon, someone who didn't give up a sack in 300-plus pass blocking snaps. Davis Allen, Puka Nakua, Travius Hodges Tomlinson, someone who I had a freaking 3rd-round grade on in the 6th round. Zach Evans, a Division II punter. How could you go wrong? I mean, the Rams killed it for what they had. I'm not going to lie. This is an A for me. The Rams absolutely blew me out of the water. Considering they didn't have a 1st-round pick, I didn't really have high hopes for them, but they made the most out of every single pick that they had. That's definitely an A for me. Maybe an A-, around there. A-, whatever. The Vegas Raiders are up next. Tyree Wilson, I thought was an absolute need. I know a lot of people might have thought, even JWAC gave them a D for taking them at 7. I thought that was crazy. I thought that he was at worst a B+ pick. I like the Tyree Wilson pick a lot here. Trading up for Michael Mayer, you go get your tight end of the future. Love that a lot. Not going to lie, I thought that this was the other Byron Young when they drafted him. Another solid piece, though. They needed a defensive lineman. They needed a run-stopping defensive lineman. Trey Tucker in the 3rd round, not going to lie, not a fan. Thought it was just a pure luxury pick, and they didn't even get the faster one of the 2 Cincinnati wide receivers. Was not a fan of that pick at all. Ja'Cory Bennett in round 4, beautiful pick. Aiden O'Connell, a nice backup quarterback right there. Then they got Christopher Smith, someone who a lot of people thought was going to go late day 2. They get him in the 5th round. And then Nesta Jader Sylvester, another pick as well. I definitely butchered that name. I read it, and I know his name, and everyone knows that watches this channel knows that I've drafted him before, and I completely butchered that. I'm going through this as fast as I can to get this video out as fast as I can to you guys. I like this draft class a lot. I think right away, Chandler Jones was a disappointment. Max Crosby can't do it on his own. Tyree Wilson was a fantastic pick. This is a really good draft class, in my opinion. Trey Tucker in the 3rd round, kind of a wasted pick here. And then, you get Aiden O'Connell in the 4th round. A lot of people might think that was a waste, but there's some super value here. Christopher Smith, Ja'Cory Bennett. This is a solid B+ draft for me. I think the Raiders surprisingly, I think the Raiders actually did a pretty good job this year. I like that pick a lot. All right, moving on to the Miami Dolphins. Only 4 picks. And I'm not going to lie, I was surprised with every single one of them. Cam Smith in round 2, they are building a no-fly zone. They have Xavier Howard, they traded for Jalen Ramsey, and they get Cam Smith. I mean, tremendous. I loved it. I thought a lot of people kind of scratched their head at that pick. He was probably one of the best defensive players left on the board at that time. You go and you get him. Cam Smith at this spot, tremendous value. Devin Achane offers a lot of speed at the running back position. I know they re-signed Raheem Mostert. I know they signed Jeff Wilson. This is an offense. Mike McDaniel loves speed. Doesn't get much faster than Devin Achane. I like that a lot. Elijah Higgins, tremendous value in the 6th round. And then Ryan Hayes, a nice backup offensive line piece as well. I would have liked to see them go for an offensive lineman maybe a little bit earlier, to be quite honest with you. I feel like these were more luxury picks than anything. Cam Smith really won it for me, though. I think that pick alone deserves a B for the Miami Dolphins. Like I said, only 4 picks, but I think they did a solid job for what they had. Moving on now, we are getting into the back end here. We're going to the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings did really well. The Vikings love to trade down in day 2 and day 3. They made a couple. They only had 5 picks going in. They did pick up an extra pick along the way. They did great. Jordan Addison here in the 1st round. I love it. A lot of people were thinking Will Levis. Jordan Addison here offers a great wide receiver too. Now you have Justin Jefferson, you have KJ Osborne, and Jordan Addison to add with Dalvin Cook and TJ Hawkinson. Fantastic offensive pickup. I love it. Mekhi Blackmon, super solid piece here. I think this is going to be the starting slot cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings. Then you got Jay Ward, possibly a long-term safety replacement for Harrison Smith. Jacqueline Roy with some really nice value here in the 5th round. Jaron Hall, pretty much just a BYU version of Kellen Mond. I wasn't really happy with that pick, to be quite honest with you. And then Dwayne McBride at pick in the 7th round. Tremendous value there. I love this a lot. I think this is a really, really solid draft class for the Minnesota Vikings, excuse me. I got cotton mouth right now. I am talking so fast and saying so many things and so many different names. I'm going bananas right here. But I think this was a really solid class overall. I'm going to give it a B. I like it. I definitely like that class for sure. I think they went after a couple big needs, and I think wide receiver probably wasn't so high on a lot of people's list, but I think it was an actual need. Now, you have the New England Patriots, who not only traded back and screwed the New York Jets out of getting Broderick Jones, that in its own right deserves an A. But then they got possibly the best cornerback in the draft at number 17, at Christian Gonzalez. Fantastic pick. This is who I thought they were going to go with at 14. They traded back a few spots, gained a 4th-round pick, and got Christian Gonzalez. Then it gets a little wonky. I mean, we all know that Bill Belichick has some wonky drafts. This was one of the more wonkier. Keon White, I thought we were going to have a normal draft because they got 2 positions of need right away, in cornerback and then defensive line. Keon White, another great pick. Marte Mapu was interesting. Daniel Jeremiah's favorite player in the entire draft was Marte Mapu, so that was interesting. Jake Andrews, solid offensive line piece. They traded up for a kicker. Now, if that is not a New England Patriots move, I don't know what is. Sidi Sow and Antonio Mafe, solid pieces here. Keishon Boutte in the 6th round for what he could be is a tremendous punt. I like that. Demario Douglas as well. They drafted a punter. Isaiah Bolden and Amir Speed. I mean, this guy better be fast. Amir Speed better have a 4.3 speed if his last name is Speed. It would be ridiculous if he doesn't. I think this is overall a pretty good class. I think Marte Mapu, Chad Reeland in the 4th round. I mean, whatever. It's a New England Patriots draft. Bryce Beringer as well, who shockingly looks a lot like Rodrigo Blankenship. I thought this was an interesting up and down draft, though. But I like it. I'm not going to lie. And this is being as impartial as possible as a New York Jet fan. So I really think this is a solid B+. I was puzzled last year by what the Patriots did. This year, it was a little bit more clear, even though they still had a couple weird picks. But this is one of the more normal New England Patriots draft classes we've seen in quite some time. New Orleans Saints are next. Brian Bresee at pick number 30. Great value. Love that. Then Isaiah Foskey in the second. I'm not going to lie, really high for Isaiah Foskey. I like it still because they really needed some defensive line depth. I was shocked that they went defensive line 2 picks in a row. Getting Brian Bresee and then getting Isaiah Foskey, I was surprised. Some really nice value down the board. Kendre Miller, a lot of people are hating on this pick. Kendre Miller is a great pick. He has the potential to be the workhorse when Alvin Kamara is maybe eventually traded. I like that a lot, to be quite honest with you. I know they have Jamal Williams as well, but Kendre Miller is a really, really solid piece. Nick Saldiveri, great pick here. I knew that they needed some offensive line depth. He could play tackle. He could play guard. I really like that. Jake Haener, super solid quarterback depth there. Jordan Howen as well. I don't mind that pick. And then A.T. Perry in the 6th round, where a lot of people, even one scout I read, had a 1st-round grade on A.T. Perry. You can't beat that value. You can't beat that size down the field. 6'4". He's a contested ball beast. I think in the 6th round, that was great. I like this draft class from the New Orleans Saints. And you guessed it, people. They're getting a B. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's just so many good draft classes this year. I feel like so many teams did a really, really good job of just being super solid in all their picks. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but it is what it is at this point. New York Giants absolutely crushed it. Deonte Banks trading up a spot to get Deonte Banks, loved it. This is exactly the type of cornerback that Wick Martindale is looking for in his defense. John Michael Schmitz, they desperately needed some interior offensive line help. They got John Michael Schmitz. They need a burner on the outside. They got Jalen Hyatt. They need a super solid, don't get me wrong. I think Matt Breida is a good backup. I think Eric Gray can be better. Trey Hawkins had a 9.82 RAS score. He wasn't invited to the combine, but that's completely okay. He's a cornerback safety combo there. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was crazy that they went with 3 straight offensive picks here. But that's exactly what they needed. They hit on 3 straight picks they needed. They desperately needed a physical boundary corner. I think the New York Giants absolutely blew me out of the water, to be quite honest with you. I loved this draft class. They get an A for me. The New York Giants, 2 straight years, are killing it in the draft. I loved their draft class. Then moving on, we have my New York Jets. And I'll be honest with you guys, not a fan. It got off to a bad start with Will McDonald at pick number 15. I know that the Jets were floundering after the Pittsburgh Steelers traded up for Broderick Jones. I knew that was the man that they wanted. They settled on Will Anderson. The War Room seemed to look happy after getting Will McDonald. It's been a long 3 days. Will McDonald at 15 just didn't make a lot of sense to me. If you're going to want a speed rusher that can play linebacker, get Nolan Smith. He was on the board. It's a pick that just it drives me bananas to this day. I'm going to try and make the best of it. I'm assuming that they have a plan for Will McDonald as a situational pass rusher. That's really what he is. He's a speed rusher. He wasn't used properly at Iowa State. Maybe there's something that the Jets brass saw that we didn't. I was super underwhelmed with the first pick. This is not a position of need. JSN was on the board. I know that there wasn't a good tackle left on the board at 15. I know that they were trying desperately to trade back. I think that they should have just taken JSN if no one wanted to trade back. I don't really see what role Will McDonald has in this defense right now. Then my favorite pick was Joe Tippmann. I loved this pick. This is exactly what the Jets need, a long-term center, a Nick Mangold type of player. I know they re-signed Connor McGovern. That's for 1 year. They could kick McGovern over to guard if they want to, and they have Joe Tippmann. So I like this pick a lot. This was my favorite pick. Carter Warren can turn into something. Israel Abanikanda. I don't understand the running back selection. I don't. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I don't understand it. Jarek Bernard Converse was actually a really good pick. He's a super, super athletic player. He had a tremendous PFF grade. And that's really it. Zach Kuntz, another pick as well, that had a super high RAS score. He's super athletic. But we already have 4 tight ends on the roster. I was just very, very underwhelmed with this Jets draft class. And I'm going to be super harsh on my favorite team here. I know we went with depth for the most part. It's going to be a D+ for me. The New York Jets severely underwhelmed. After getting Aaron Rodgers, they had all the momentum in the world, and they did not capitalize on it. That first-round pick left a bad taste in my mouth to begin with, and then it just didn't get much better after that, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, and that's coming from the mouth of a Jet fan, so I don't know what to tell you guys. Philadelphia, A+. Value up and down the board. Jalen Carter, this is the North version of Georgia. Jalen Carter, they stayed at 30. They got Nolan Smith. They got Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown in back-to-back picks. They waited until the 4th round, and they got Keely Ringo. Tanner McKee, whatever. I know they signed Marcus Mariota. This is a nice developmental quarterback. And then even late in the draft, Moro Ajomo. And not to mention, they traded and got DeAndre Swift. I mean, another Howie Roseman masterclass. This is an A+ if I've ever seen one. There's really not much else to say, to be quite honest with you. This is an absolute A, in my opinion. A+, A++. Probably one of the 2 or 3 best draft classes out of any team. And speaking of great draft classes, Pittsburgh Steelers murdered this draft. Trading up for Broderick Jones, fantastic move. You took it away from a out-of-division rival in the New York Jets. They needed desperately an offensive tackle. They stayed at 32 and got Joey Porter Jr., they got Keanu Benton. They got Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig, Corey Trice. Oh my God, a tremendous draft class. They got amazing cornerback depth with Trice. They got a day 1 starter in Joey Porter Jr. Keanu Benton is going to look so good next to Casey Hayward. Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth probably form one of the best tight end duos in the NFL. An absolute masterclass from the Pittsburgh Steelers. This deserves another A+ for me. A tremendous draft class for them. Then moving on, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Another team. I was a little underwhelmed with their draft class here. Devin Witherspoon at 5 is completely fine. He was the best cornerback on the board. I knew cornerback was a need. I didn't expect them to go cornerback at 5, but now you have an elite nickel corner. He's probably going to play with Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant on the outside. He's definitely going to play in the slot. I think that's great. You get one of the most elite slot players in the NFL right away. So I didn't mind that pick. Jackson Smith-Njigba at pick 20 was amazing. They basically made 2 luxury picks to round out both rooms. They have one of the best wide receiving cores in the NFL and one of the youngest and brightest cornerback rooms in the NFL. So right then and there, I love those first 2 picks. Everything after this is really not it for me. Derek Hall is a complete luxury pick in the 2nd round. Didn't think they needed him right away. Zach Charbonnet, I get it. You're trying to form a 1-2 monster with Kenneth Walker. Didn't like this pick at all either. Anthony Bradford in the 4th round is okay. He's more of a developmental player. He's huge, 6'4", 340 pounds. He could probably be a backup offensive tackle. He's probably going to play guard at the next level. Okay, Cameron Young, this is a super nice nose tackle depth piece, I would say. Mike Morris, another defense. They really, really emphasize the line, which I like. Olusegun Oluwatimi is probably going to be a 5th round starting center, so I like that pick. And then getting Kenny McIntosh in the 7th round, even though they did draft Zach Charbonnet, this is a super solid pick. Now you have Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and Kenny McIntosh as your 3 running backs. It's good. Don't get me wrong. I like Derek Hall. I like Zach Charbonnet. I like Anthony Bradford. I like Mike Morris. I just don't know how well this draft class is going to go together. I know Seattle Seahawks fans are high on this. I'm just not as high. I thought a lot of picks were puzzling for me. It's going to be a C+ for me. I think that JSN and Devin Witherspoon really highlight this class, and then Olusegun Oluwatimi as well. Other than that, I'm just a little underwhelmed by the picks. I didn't think it was the greatest draft class for what it could have been. And then San Francisco. Got to be honest with you. Jair Brown, it got off to a great start. Great player. He's going to be he's one of the most underrated safeties, one of the most underrated players in the entire draft class. I loved this pick. This was actually a pick I made in my San Francisco 49ers 7th round mock. I like this. Then after that, I don't know, man. Jake Moody in the 3rd round. Come on. Cameron Latu in the 3rd round. I did not like these 2 picks at all. Darrell Luter, solid pick. Robert Beal, okay, good. You got good defensive end depth. They didn't get a starting defensive end. And in my opinion, they needed an offensive lineman bad. They needed a tackle. With Blake Freeland on the board with these 2 picks, I was very confused that they didn't take at least someone that could be a good swing tackle. I was very confused. Like I said, Darrell Luter and Robert Beal, these are good picks. D. Winters and Ronnie Bell, solid picks as well. Braden Wills, another tight end. I don't understand it at all. I think this is a very confusing draft class for the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm going to give it a D+. I'm not a fan of this at all, to be quite honest with you. Moving on, we have 3 teams left. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had very quietly a very interesting draft. I like Kalijah Kancey, pairing him next to Vita Vea. I know he's a little undersized, but I think he's going to be a beast next to Vea. You create a lot of one-on-one opportunities, having a 350-pound nose tackle. I think he could really show out in Tampa Bay. Cody Mock, love the pick. Absolutely love the pick there. I think that it's tremendous value where they got him in the 2nd round. You got someone that could play tackle, you got someone that could play guard, and he's nasty. He's an absolute mauler. Yaya Diaby was a really nice pick as well. Super athletic for the position. I think that I know he's big, but he might end up better as an outside linebacker in Tampa's 3-4 system. Servassier Dennis was an interesting pick here. I like the depth for the inside linebacker. Payne Durham, another tight end. All right. Josh Hayes was interesting as well. Trey Palmer and Jose Ramirez in the 6th round here. Tremendous value. You get a really nice speedster who has some good size as well in Trey Palmer. And then Jose Ramirez could be a really nice developmental outside linebacker or defensive end. Super solid draft for me. I like it. They weren't too flashy, but they got the job done. That's going to be a B for me for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then moving on to the second to last team, the Tennessee Titans. Peter Skoronski in round 1. This is exactly what they needed. Their offensive line is the weakest on the team, the weakest group on the team for sure. You get someone that could legitimately start in all 5 offensive line positions. I love this pick. I love the value here. Will Levis at this pick just makes too much sense. They traded up to get him. This could be your quarterback of the future, your franchise quarterback in the 2nd round. Tremendous value there. Tajay Spears in the 3rd round. I was a little confused. This is an all-offensive draft, by the way. This is very rare. You don't see an all-offensive draft too often. But the Tennessee Titans defense is pretty good, and it's pretty deep, so it makes a little bit of sense to me. Tajay Spears was more of a luxury pick. I think he forms a really nice duo with Derrick Henry, but they also drafted Hassan Haskins last year, so that was a little puzzling to me. Josh Wiley forms a nice 1-2 with Chigakwonkwo. Then Jalen Duncan in the 6th round is super nice value. Colton Dowell is whatever. Colton Dowell, excuse me. Jalen Duncan in the 6th round is a really nice pick. This is a super solid draft class, considering they only had, 6 picks, and they did all offense. I think this is a really solid draft class. You guessed it. They're going to be in the B category. It's going to get a B, a solid B for me. That's not what I meant. It's going to be a good draft class. Then, Washington is the final team here. I was very confused at what they did with their first 2 picks. Emmanuel, I mean, I don't know, were they just throwing darts at the cornerback and the interior offensive line board? Emmanuel Forbes is great. Don't get me wrong. I like this pick, to be quite honest with you. I know that he's going to probably start on the outside. I know 166 pounds scares people, but his coverage ability, his speed, and his production, off the charts. I think this was the right pick, believe it or not, for the Washington Commanders. Then they come back around in the second round, they get Quan Martin. I mean, I like the player and I like the versatility. He can play safety. He can play in the slot as well as a nickel corner. I don't get the cornerback picks. I don't. Same thing here with Ricky Stromberg and Braden Daniels. This is, Braden Daniels could probably play center as well. But you get a true center in Ricky Stromberg, who I probably thought would have been there in round 4. They do need interior offensive line depth. I'm okay with that. This is a roster that really isn't that bad. They just need a good quarterback. Chris Rodriguez is a beast in the 6th round. I like that. KJ Henry is some solid depth as a prototypical defensive end. Andre Jones, a linebacker, which is what they needed there. I'm a little perplexed with the picks, to be quite honest with you. I'm not in love with the draft class. I really like the Emmanuel Forbes pick, and I get the Quan Martin pick. The rest of this draft class is just interesting. I like Braden Daniels and Ricky Stromberg, but I just, after the offensive line moves that they made in the offseason, I don't know. I think they could have used this pick on Osiris Torrance, and it would have made a lot more sense to me, to be quite honest with you. So I'm going to give the Washington Commanders a C for their draft. I just didn't get a couple of their picks, that's all. It's all up for debate. So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. There is my full 2023 NFL draft grades. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm sure everyone's going to blast me in the comments. That's completely fine. I get it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one. Happy end of draft season.